John C.
Hello everybody, my name's Gale, and today I want to talk about Miraculous Ladybug. Miraculous Ladybug is a show about two superheroes protecting Paris from the evil Hawk Moth, while also secretly being in love with one another's alter egos. Quite frankly, I love the show, but I also think it's awful hot garbage. So I'm gonna rant about it. Anyone who has tried to watch the show anywhere but Netflix has probably noticed that keeping things in order has never been Ladybug's strong suit. Heck, even Netflix has gotten the order for some episodes wrong. Characters are different depending on which studio does the bulk of production, animation errors become a game to spot, and the release timeline is just plain wonky. I don't really want to get into any of these production issues as I have no expertise or knowledge of a cartoon's crafting, but this trouble with consistency transcends production and is a problem with the show itself. The easiest issues to spot have to do with episode order. Because the show follows an adventure of the day formula, there seems to be a belief that any episode can go anywhere as long as it isn't the finale of a season. If the show was anything like SpongeBob, where there is no overarching story or goals for the characters, perhaps that might have worked, but this isn't. Miraculous Ladybug has a set goal, and has milestones within canon that place events strictly before or after one another. An early and very simple example comes all the way from Season 1, with the introduction of Jagged Stone, a minor character not even relevant to the main plot. In the episode Pixelator, Marinette ends up meeting the rock star and creating a pair of glasses for him that lead to an artistic partnership between them that continues for the rest of the show. Now, in France, the episode that follows makes sense. Pixelator is followed by Guitar Villain, an episode that references this new artistic partnership and where Jagged Stone becomes the villain of the day. But in the United States, Guitar Villain was released before Pixelator. This meant that the American audience was introduced to Jagged Stone with no context as to why he knows Marinette. He's just some rock star dude who says he knows her for some reason. As someone who watched the episodes as they came out, I was more than confused. But that's just a small example that really doesn't have much bearing on the overall story. A more egregious example comes from the episode Party Crashers. Party Crashers' problem, other than it's just an objectively awful episode that should never have existed, is pretty simple. In the episode, the villain is stopped by 6 heroes: Ladybug, Cat Noir, Carapace, Viperion, Pegasus, and the new hero King Monkey. The problem? Viperion and Pegasus have never appeared in an episode before this. Several episodes later, both will go through individual episodes that build them up to be superheroes, but that's spoiled by this episode because their superhero personas hardly prevent even the smallest of children from figuring out who is whom. Not to mention that they just straight up show the transformations anyway, so surprise? Like, imagine watching Steven Universe and Bismuth is there as a main character, just randomly fighting with the gems, and then 5 episodes later they show Steven release her and introduce her character and pretend nothing ever happened. It's just, you know, it's just, forget it. Forget that one. Pretend it didn't happen. If anything shows how bad the inconsistency in this show is, though, it's Kwame Buster. The premise is simple. Marinette and Adrian's science teacher, Miss Mendeleev, has seen and been trying to capture Plog and Tiki, the magical Kwamis. Now, because they don't show up on film, this is incredibly hard, but she draws crude pictures of them and uses film showing cheese being eaten by an invisible creature to try to convince some strange TV show people that Kwamis exist. When no one believes her, she turns into the titular villain Kwame Buster. Now, had this been an isolated event, perhaps it wouldn't have been so weird, but at least 3 of the people in the room watching this have had Kwamis of their own. They know these creatures exist, they know that Ladybug and Cat Noir have Kwamis themselves, and none of them even do a double take? Are we supposed to believe that all of them are so stupid that this doesn't make any of them, including the #1 Ladybug reporter who previously used whatever small hints she could get to figure out the heroine's identity, take a second to ponder what that could mean? But okay, let's say that they are that stupid, because the show has made them that stupid. The next inconsistency is worse in practically every single way. Marinette runs off to talk to Tiki about the damage that has potentially been done, and in their conversation Marinette says,
"It's okay. I know you're trying to protect me. If I figure out who he is, I'll have to give up my Miraculous and Ladybug. We gotta go, Tiki. I have to find a way to convince Cat Noir that Marinette Dupanchin can't possibly be Ladybug. Otherwise, I won't be able to be Ladybug anymore."
Marinette? Nah. Besides, you shouldn't be trying to find out more. If you discovered Ladybug's true identity, you'd have to give your Miraculous back.
Master, Tiki and Blanc have been captured and Cat Noir might discover my secret identity.
You are both well aware of the consequences of that.
Marinette, if you had been forced to give up being Ladybug because of me, I would have never forgiven myself.
What? What the fuck?
Since when has that been a rule? Never has it been stated in 2.5 seasons that if they learn each other's identities, they would have to stop being superheroes. And it's not like the idea hasn't come up. They've had discussions about the dangers of knowing who the other is and why Ladybug is against it, and never, not once, has the answer been, well, because if we shared our identities, we wouldn't be superheroes anymore, so you know, that's a no-go. Which would have been a pretty good thing to bring up considering both characters would be incredibly sad upon losing their powers. No, it is incredibly obvious that this line of awkward exposition was added because the writers had written themselves into a box where it was obvious that Marinette and Adrien should be figuring out something about each other's identity, and because that can't happen yet for whatever reason, they need to make it a rule that they can't, or they'll lose their powers. And yes, it was totally a rule this whole time and not a hastily thought out rug that is covering the gaping hole in the ground. Not to mention, this rule almost seems targeted at people who just want the major reveal to happen already, because boy is the awkward will they won't they starting to overstay its welcome. Now, it can't happen until they defeat Hawkmoth in 5 seasons, and then whatever villain replaces him in the next 80, and a movie, because they've got to milk this for all it's worth. It's clear that the writers want to do interesting and fun premises, but it is also clear that they either are writing episodes out of order and then throwing them together afterwards, or just don't reference past episodes at all. Which is a bad thing you do only when you want to write a show badly. You ever get told that the new girl in class knows movie producers, a prince, a rock star, was saved by the city's superheroine in such a spectacular way that they became friends, has issues with her wrist and her ears, and also she comes from a long line of superheroes that have never seen before, and yeah, she's totally legit? What? You've never had that completely relatable experience? Strange, ain't it? Lila sucks on a lot of levels, mostly on purpose, but also sometimes because they just go too far with her. She's like a walking deus ex machina. She needs a tie-in with superheroes, she just happens to have a necklace that matches one of the Miraculouses. She gets caught doing something she previously stated she couldn't. She catches a napkin and claims she did it to save Max from being hurt, and the smartest kid in school who made an AI robot can't figure out that it had no chance of hurting him whatsoever. She needs to get close to Marinette's closest friend. She gets on the Ladybug within an hour of knowing Alia, despite Alia being the one who always says a reporter always checks her sources. People just get dumb around her for no reason. There are realistic lies a person can tell to be malicious or gain favor that don't involve everyone around them being an absolute moron. Lila is an awful human being, sure, but she's also impossible to take seriously because there isn't thinking involved when she's on screen. The thing that stops her aren't carefully thought out narratives where they find holes in her story. In fact, she's only been proven wrong once in front of Adrien, and that's it. She's so impervious to basic logic that in the 2 seasons she's been a part of, not one character beyond our main protagonist has seen through one of her blatant lies. But then again, she was introduced and then kind of left to waste away on the side, so is she really important if she doesn't even show up until an over-bloated finale calls for her? Miraculous Ladybug suffers from an acute case of stuffage. The show tries to shove as many plots, themes, and ideas into a season as possible, and in the process, they never actually explore anything they put forward. Emotions, events, and especially characters are almost like set pieces. They frame the action and dialogue, but nothing ever develops from them. And like a set, once the idea is out of sight, it's never mentioned or expanded upon again. The wasted concept I hate most is the addition of heroes for one episode. In Season 1, there were only 2 heroes, our main characters. Because of this, they had a secret only they knew about, and the knowledge that only one other person in Paris understood what they were going through. This situation created interest into what a Miraculous was. Why does it work the way it does? Who was the man who chose Marinette and Adrien to be heroes? How did Hawkmoth get one? Are there others? Season 2 answered that last question with a resounding yes, as Alia became the first new hero, Rena Rouge. And with this move, the precedent was set that there could be more heroes, and with the frickin' opening showing us 7 silhouettes and the Miraculous box open with 7 sections, it was not a stretch to say that a 5-hero team against a villain duo was coming up. Alia and Nino made perfect sense as the next chosen heroes due to their canonical closeness to the main characters, and Chloe as an accidental pick would be genius, as it would force Marinette to face her not unreasonable hatred of the girl in order to fight crime effectively. Had this season set up Season 3 to be more team-based, there could have been stronger villains, more intense stakes, and Ladybug and Cat Noir could have had more relationships with people as their superhero personas, showing just how different being under the mask makes their interactions with the world and people around them. Instead, they work together as a group once in the Season 2 finale, and it's not even that great. It ends up as another Ladybug and Cat Noir save the day scenario instead of showing any cool teamwork, not to mention that these new heroes don't even play by the same rules as our main characters. Where our protagonists get to keep their Miraculouses, get to know the Guardian, and have to keep their identities a secret, these new heroes are only called upon when Ladybug is desperate for more help, which usually just means that the villain is someone close to the selected civilian. They are kept completely in the dark about anything other than their specific Miraculous, and they can even know each other's secret identities without issue. Except for Cat Noir, because Cat Noir isn't allowed to know anything, apparently. My problem with this is, again, they just become set pieces. Rena Rouge has no defining characteristics other than she's Alia, but a superhero. We don't know how she feels about working with Ladybug, we don't know how she feels about Cat Noir's flirting, or Queen Bee's addition. Does she miss being a superhero when she isn't selected to go on missions? Does she feel jealous seeing new heroes be picked over her? Does she form any bond with her Kwame? She's hardly a hero considering she shows up for all of like 2 fights. This goes for Carapace as well, except he gets the privilege of being useless in a 3rd awful fight. And then in Season 3 they don't show up, and instead Ladybug hands out even more Miraculouses to whoever is the flavor of the week. If you're in this one particular class, or possibly romantically involved with either of these two, you are practically guaranteed a chance to be a superhero. And canonically, they've made it known that there are potentially hundreds of Miraculouses, so why not just give everyone in Paris with a unique character model a Miraculous?
Alright, open your boxes. Open your boxes. 1, 2, 3.
Earlier, I mentioned how Rena Rouge and Carapace seemed completely inconsequential as characters, but I didn't mention Queen Bee. That was so I could spend 5 minutes just talking about Chloe. Chloe is a jerk. She isn't a nice person or a good person. What she is, though, is interesting, fleshed out, impactful to the plot. And trust me, in this show, that is a miracle. She is the only person who acts like she's used a Miraculous when she's a civilian. And I mean that as both her not caring about her secret identity and her actions in relation to anything Ladybug related. Her character has clear changes because of this significant event in her life. There are multiple times where she brings up the fact she was Queen Bee in response to conversations. And she wasn't a totally bad hero. She does do some genuine heroic things, trying her hardest to defend innocent people even when it means she is in danger. She doesn't ask for her Miraculous so she can goof off with it, most of the time. She comes off as absolutely genuine in her wish to be just like Ladybug, a longtime role model of hers. You get to see her face light up with excitement as she gets chosen to fight by Ladybug's side. You get to see her jealous when someone gets chosen instead. You get to see her slowly lose faith in her hero as she gets passed over time and time again. Then you get to see the show writers ruin the only mildly complex character they have for the worst TV show finale possibly ever, but definitely for Miraculous Ladybug. And I wholly blame show creator Thomas Astruck for this, because he has shown his opinion quite clearly on Twitter. Thomas hates Chloe, hates her with a passion, labeling her as irredeemable. Now, let's ignore the fact that this grown man has a hate boner for a 15-year-old cartoon character, calling her, again, a 15-year-old brat at best, irredeemable. Actually, no, you know what? Let's not, because that is kinda sick. She's a cartoon character you made up, Thomas. She's a child you purposely put together as a brat and annoying, but she isn't Jeffrey frickin' Dahmer. If being a dick in middle school is all it takes to be completely irredeemable in your eyes, please, for the love of God, don't have children. Because what this girl does, what this fictional 15-year-old cartoon girl does, is not even close to evil. She's a bully. She's not a good person for most of the show, but come on, man, you literally made a character who is a compulsive liar, who almost ostracizes a girl from all her friends and gets her expelled from school, but please, tell me more about how putting gum on someone's seat compares. And you played yourself, Thomas, because in an attempt to make an Azula, you made a Zuko. So let's go over some story writing 101. First, giving a potential villain an abusive household backstory only makes your audience sympathize with your villain. If you want Chloe to be a dick by nature, you shouldn't have given her a narcissistic mom who abandons her and a spineless dad who never stands up for her unless he can use his status as mayor to do so. Second, children, due to their malleable nature, are inherently sympathetic, unless proven to be socio or psychopathic. I think this one's kind of obvious. Third, any villain becomes less important and less quote-unquote irredeemable when you add worse villains to the plot. If you wanted Chloe to be beyond saving, then why did you make Lila a person who is like Chloe, but 100% worse? Why would you give the audience that reference that only serves to prove that Chloe, in the grand scheme of things, is not that bad? Fourth, and listen to this really closely, Thomas, if you don't want a character to have a redemption arc, don't frickin' make several episodes of them having a redemption arc. Don't show her learning from her mistakes. Don't show her trying to fix what she did wrong. Don't have her explain that she understands she is hated by everyone. Don't show her giving back her miraculous willingly, and certainly don't show her being the only person to canonically fight off an academization due to her faith in our protagonist. God, how do you accidentally make a redemption arc only to frick it up so badly? And again, I'll reiterate, Chloe is not a good person. She's a bully, she's selfish, and self-centered, and obnoxious, but she isn't evil. She isn't anywhere close to evil. And to create a redemption arc over the last half a season just to end it on, well, Chloe was always bad, so this was to be expected, is dumb and unimaginative, if not downright harmful. Hi guys, this is Gail from the editing room. I have three quick things to add that I thought about while editing this, so gonna be really quick about it because this is already a really long episode and really hard to edit. One, Thomas put out a tweet responding to some other person who said that Queen Bee was like a good like superhero, and that saying basically here's a list of things that she did that were bad. That complete list came from one episode, the first episode, in which she was not informed of any of the rules of being a superhero, didn't know what the heck she was getting into, no one told her anything, and she was being emotionally abused by her mom. Let me repeat, emotionally abused by her mom. So I think we could give her a pass on kind of having a freak out session because she's a 15-year-old child. 2, when I say that the redemption didn't work out, I didn't mean necessarily that she needs to be Queen Bee and she has to be the only Queen Bee. What I mean is that there are ways for her to accept and to grow from this situation that don't involve, in this case, they didn't grow and evolve. She just got angrier and angrier, and then that was it. That was the whole point. And then she throws a tantrum, and that's supposed to be it. So things like her and Ladybug actually having a talk about why it's so dangerous for her, and maybe asking her to do other things to make the situation better, to be a everyday superhero, without needing the miraculous, or explaining that we'll only give her the miraculous when very, very specific situations come up, but know that she's no, worse than the other members of the team, it's just more dangerous. That could have avoided a lot of heartache, I believe, and it could have been really good for growth to say, people are different and stuff happens and you learn to deal with it. Anyway, point is, she doesn't have to be Queen Bee for a redemption arc to work. You just have to actually want to write something good. And 3, a lot of the stuff that Thomas and the writers put out that why this couldn't have worked out is because Chloe's a bad person and a mean person. And I just want to point out very quickly that Marinette steals cell phones for whatever needs fit her instead of admitting to things. Uses her miraculous powers to get through chores or to try to get 2 things done at once, you know, not superheroing, just like using it for her own selfish means. And she's used her superpowers before to kind of figure things out about people and then try to fix things later, which, you know, kind of usually it's a good thing that she's trying to do and fix, but that's still kind of manipulative of her to like be that way. So, like, she's not a saint. My point is, Marinette is not a saint. She akumatizes almost as many people as Chloe does. So the fact that Chloe is so mean, she's beyond redemption, but Marinette is our protagonist, and we're supposed to believe, like, she's the best thing ever, and she's the most goodest person that has ever existed, kind of blows my mind. Anyway, that's it. We'll go back to this episode. Alright, I'll see you later. Bye. Dear Hawkmoth, you are the worst villain in any television show I have ever watched. You literally could have won by episode 3 if you had just bothered to think. Just a thought, but perhaps you'll accept taking one superpowered child's jewelry next time and give it to your assistant instead of letting her die the same way your wife did. Again, just a thought. Forever wondering how incompetent you are, FallenGale. P.S. Stop trying to make evil eyes a thing. It's not going to happen. You ever look at something in a show and go, yep, that was only made a thing so that they can sell us more merchandise and toys? I present to you the strange sub-powers miraculous users get if they eat certain potion thingies before transforming. It's shown up 3 times in over 40 episodes. 2 episodes practically back to back, and they showed a water and an ice form, and then the concept is completely forgotten for the rest of season 2 and the entirety of season 3 before appearing for all of 2 minutes in the finale with the same water power, not even a new one. Nothing about them is organic, and the situations they're useful in are so specific it's laughable that they even need any help at all. The frozen ability just means they aren't cold and can ice skate. That's literally the buff they get from it. Ice skating. And the water one just allows them to swim better and breathe underwater, cause...
You won't be able to win this time. Ladybugs can't breathe underwater.
But then, only a couple episodes later, they don't need to be transformed for their weapons to double as water breathers? I mean, they're working just fine here. So, what is the point of these bonus powers? God, they're so pointless, and unfun, and not cool. Can we just go back to the start of season 2 and just reset everything? I'm pretty sure that's where most of these problems started. And, you know, while we're at it, can we just get rid of Luca? Luca is a plot device. He's a boy meant to convince Marinette and the audience that Adrian isn't her perfect match, and instead she should give up her obsession for an easier option. Luca as a concept is fine, but that's not enough to make a character. Every time he's on screen, the focus isn't on him as a person, it's on what he could mean for Marinette and Adrian's relationship. Is he gonna shake Marinette's obsessive crush on Adrian? Will he convince Marinette to go on a date with him? Is there even another question you can ask about him, considering he's just a 2-dimensional caricature of a creative soul? And strangely enough, people actually believe he's better? Now, this is where I'm gonna sound like a dick, but too bad, because this needs to be said. Luca is just a bad representation of what soft emo boys thought they looked like back in high school. He has the dyed hair, the painted nails, plays guitar, and has a soft, gentle soul that only sings for one person. She starts to crush on him because he's the hot one and plays guitar after she learns Adrian isn't showing up to band practice. Oh no! And Adrian doesn't show up because his abusive father won't let him. Oh no. So the whole triangle romance subplot starts with Marinette crying over how her and Adrian aren't meant to be because, again, his abusive father prevents him from having friends, plus the fact she's never even told Adrian she has feelings for him, so why is she acting like she's been rejected? But then she's emotionally available for this guy because he plays an instrument. And that's the formula. Adrian is painted as unobtainable because, quite frankly, Marinette is just plain incompetent. Luca shows up and is available with no other defining traits other than he says vapid flattery, and Marinette gets confused about her romantic feelings. Why does Luca even like Marinette? He apparently falls in love with her after playing her a single song because she is a quote-unquote funny girl. That's our love connection that's supposed to outshine the main romance, which has been part of the show since episode 1. You're a funny girl, and I play guitar well. What a combo! And I hate it, not because, oh my gosh, it's not my ship! I hate it because it ultimately is pointless and a waste of time that could have been better used with more creativity. One of the ideas the show tries to put forward is that Marinette can be herself around Luca, which is impossible around Adrian. 1. The only thing stopping Marinette from having a normal conversation with Adrian is herself. He's not manipulative, he's not abrasive or condescending, he doesn't bully her into being something she's not. He's clearly shown in several episodes to think fairly highly of her and want to be better friends. She's just incompetent, so she cock-blocks herself. 2. She can't be herself with Luca. Her problems don't stem from being a high school teen, they stem from being a superhero. All the stress of having too much to do, saving Paris, feeling like she failed the Guardian because of her own selfish desires, she can't talk about any of it with Luca or she'll reveal her identity. So why is the show pretending like he'll help fix it? 3. You know who is hot and plays an instrument, has shown romantic interest in her before, been there for her in countless situations where she didn't believe in herself, and can understand her stress perfectly without jeopardizing her identity? Cat Noir! And he even comes with the bonus of being her literal crush Adrian! Seriously, I don't understand how I'm supposed to believe that she would jump off her crush for Adrian for this guy she barely knows when she is impossible to move when it comes to her partner of at least a couple months. And we know Marinette will get together with Adrian eventually. The whole show's premise is about them getting together, so pretending there's another option for how it ends is stupid. A better use of our time would have been Marinette learning to love Cat Noir. And that could be more dramatic because Adrian questions if he should go out with Kagami, and so Cat Noir is now emotionally unavailable to Marinette. Then we can see both of them struggle with the relationship between them without having to pretend it won't happen. Cat Noir can learn how it feels to be an equal relationship and determine for himself if being chosen over others is enough for him or if he's looking for something beyond the first person who likes him. And Marinette can learn that the people she likes also have feelings and wants and they can't wait forever for her to get over her own issues. Because Adrian needs to learn how real love and appreciation feels, and Marinette needs to learn how to define herself outside of who she's crushing on. That would be character development. But instead, the show focuses on the new guy relationship, and how it's totally gonna make the other relationship impossible, because clearly the show about two halves a whole represent creation and destruction that mutually like each other romantically but just don't know it, is going to end up with them liking different people. I don't have as big a problem with Kagami because she at least has a personality and has explicitly expressed interest in Adrian, and he was rejected multiple times by his crush, so it makes sense for him to move on. What is up with these designs? Did someone just put down superhero is Ladybug, put spots on spandex, and turn in his first draft as the final product? Really? And they even show past Ladybugs who had way cooler outfits. Even Mr. Bug has a better costume than Ladybug's plain suit. The villains are also heinous. Why are half of them just color swaps? I'm evil, so I must wear black. Unless you're Cat Blanc, in which case I already wore black, so I now must wear white! The other half are just unimaginative and ugly. What's up with the bubbler? Who let that get through the rough draft stage? He's literally one step away from having a dildo for a head. Please, hire new outfit designers, but not this man who thinks candy cane is an acceptable necktie to pair with bright red pants. Time is my favorite factor in a show. Pacing a show to hit you hard and slow when the time is right, but never slowing down progression, is what separates good shows like Steven Universe from great shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a special factor that shows care and depth in a scene, sometimes changing small moments into the most meaningful. If there is anything the writing team for Miraculous Ladybug have not figured out yet, it's how to use time correctly. Before I said that the writing team likes to use new ideas but never commit to them. This is because they never are willing to give an idea time to sit. New heroes are never given time to learn and grow, the villain of the day format never gives our protagonist time to process the main plot, and even Luca would be miles better if they just gave him time to show us who he really is. But I've already talked about how all of that feels wasted on this show. What really bothers me about their use of time is how they never let the show just sit. One of the most poignant shots that has stuck with me comes from 2011's Hunter x Hunter. In episode 5, the protagonist Gon meets and fights Hisoka for the first time, his antagonist for most of the rest of the show. And while Gon shows great creativity and potential in this fight, he still is thoroughly beaten. For a couple seconds, all you hear is Gon's heavy breathing as he tries to take in what just happened and how seriously outmatched he was in that fight. What makes this moment memorable is not the content of the scene, but the presentation of that content. The show's director lets the moment breathe, and I literally mean breathe. You just get a second to be in Gon's shoes, alone in the silence with only your own heavy breathing in your ears as you struggle to catch your breath. It's so short, not even taking up half a minute, and yet it feels like forever because they hold it without throwing in sound effects or music or dialogue. In contrast, I don't think I've ever felt Ladybug take a hit. The action's too focused on being colorful, on moving, on setting up the lucky charm for the final push against the villain. There's no time for Ladybug to feel pain, or to be overwhelmed, or to be vulnerable. There's more punching and kicking she has to do. And this goes for Marinette as well. She almost has too much to say about every situation, and because she has Tiki around, she always has an excuse to talk out loud. Frustration over Adrian, happiness for her friends, anger at Lila and Chloe, these emotions would be easy to express visually without filling the air with dialogue, but Marinette's never given time to feel. There's this one great scene where Marinette and Cat Noir are both lamenting their love lives. Marinette is just hanging out on her balcony, not doing anything, but looking out at the stars, and Cat Noir just drops in because he's lonely, and he doesn't want to be by himself right now. And that quiet moment between the two is nice, because we know that they're both pining for each other, but they don't. And when they share their feelings of heartbreak, it creates a moment where we, as the audience, get to see why they work well together, even when it is an unconscious move by both of them. Then he whisks her away to a surprise for Ladybug, and instead of taking a second to seriously talk out some feelings and progress the relationship forward, even if non-romantically, Marinette just stumbles through trying not to admit to anything as Ladybug while trying to cheer Cat Noir up. Then Inakuma crashes the party anyway, so... As a kid, that would be enough. They got to be together, and they said the word love, and now we're back to the action. As an adult, however, I want that quiet moment to last a little bit longer. I want them to cry, to feel that heartbreak, and confide in each other. But that takes time, and it takes dialogue and subtle animation conveying emotions and unsaid feelings, and that isn't the goal of the show. Miraculous Ladybug doesn't do quiet moments, it doesn't do introspection. It's a children's show about superheroes saving the day from supervillains while being in love. But even the excuse of it being for kids doesn't hold up, because other children's television has progressed into conveying emotional maturity, leaving Miraculous Ladybug in the dust. You'll hear about Avatar: The Last Airbender for the rest of your lives because of how it made a serious emotional story for children. Steven Universe tackles themes of sexuality and belonging while also having a fun adventure that doesn't stray from a PG rating. Even Pokemon has evolved to have serious but gentle death scenes that convey the sadness one feels at the loss of a loved one without exposition cheating the moment. Literally one episode of Pokemon has 2 moments that perfectly show how presentation and better use of time can overrule the content. In the final episode of Ash vs. How, there is a moment where everyone believes Ash has lost. Instead of Ash walking forward and just smiling away his sadness or congratulating his opponent on a hard-fought battle, the camera just watches his body posture without even looking at his face. And you see the exact moment he realizes that the battle is over and there's nothing he can do to win. Then the camera pans up to his face, and he is devastated. The sound in the scene is normal, the crowd is cheering in the background, the announcer is declaring the victor, but Ash says nothing and no one tells you how he feels. Later, the battle will continue due to a technicality and Ash will ultimately win the match. Now we focus on How and how he feels having been declared the victor, only to have it taken from right under him. How isn't a main character, he's hardly a side character in the series, and yet the way they show his emotions after the battle treats him with dignity. Like what he is going through matters, even if it doesn't change how we view him and the show. He leaves the stadium, meets up with his grandfather, and tries to pretend he's okay. And when his grandpa tells him he did his best, he breaks down and cries. And there isn't any patronizing talk about how to feel, or how he can get better if he trains more, or how to deal with emotions. He just cries and gets a hug and feels something for a second. And this is why, even when they try things like Cat Blanc, an episode that's supposed to be heart-wrenching, the feelings don't really land. Sure, we know we're supposed to feel sad that Marinette and Adrian's relationship was ruined by his awful father, but each scene of them together lasts all of 5 seconds before we're moving to the next one. And they're exposition scenes, not emotional ones. They all serve a purpose trying to tell us how something in their relationship happened. How did Adrian figure out it was Marinette? How did Marinette end up trying to end the relationship? How did Adrian reveal he was Cat Noir? How did Hawkmoth know? How was he akumatized? They don't take time to ask how either of the characters felt about any of those situations. If the relationship was strong, or if it wasn't all Marinette had hoped for. Did Adrian struggle to keep his identity as Cat Noir secret? Did that cause a rift in their relationship? How long did they even go out? These questions don't matter to the overall plot of Cat Blanc, so they aren't important enough to even touch upon. It's also A to B, never giving the audience anything more than what is explicitly needed to understand the scenario they've written. The episode Ladybug is the same. Marinette almost gets akumatized in this episode, and yet the minute she isn't akumatized, the show cuts to later in the day. Why can't they just spend 5 seconds for her to realize how close she was to losing everything? And the next conversation she has with Tiki is just more exposition on how she's going to prove her innocence, and if she was akumatized, that would be the end of Ladybug, which, duh, we already know that. Don't you have any emotion? You just got expelled, called a liar, a thief. People believed you pushed a girl down the stairs because you didn't like her, and your reaction is, I can't let that nasty Hawkmoth win, What kind of 15-year-old response is that? What kind of human response is that? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Adrian makes her a lucky charm, has to ask his father for permission to go to her birthday party, gives her the charm, Lila teams up with Gabriel Agreste, and it's all in the span of 1.5 minutes. 1.5. I've probably talked about this episode for longer than they've gave Adrian and Marinette to have a pretty big scene, considering this proves he sees her as a friend, cherishes her gift, reciprocates that gift, and I'm sure Marinette had some overblown reaction to receiving it. But no, there's no time to develop the main romance of the show. By 7 minutes, Marinette is akumatized. By 7 minutes 20 seconds, she's totally fine and back home. By 9 minutes 30 seconds, they've implied Adrian's mom is in a death coma because she is the Peacock Miraculous. Then Alia snoops around to see if Lila is a liar. Gabrielle and Natalie have a moment. Mayura makes a Ladybug Sentimonster. Cat Noir and Scentibug have a confession scene. Ladybug interrupts. They fight Mayura, only to have a strangely deep movement without the Sentimonster's sentience and free will, only for Scentibug to be destroyed 30 seconds later. And then Hawkmoth joins the battle only to cause a stalemate where Cat Noir and Mayura are thrown off a building in a trade. Gabrielle and Natalie have another moment, and then Adrian threatens Lila to get Marinette back in school because, oh yeah, this was an episode with Lila in it, wasn't it? Where is the pacing? You've had a whole season to set up Lila hating Marinette, a season to show Natalie and Gabriel's relationship, a season where you could have had an episode dedicated to Marinette's school drama almost akumatizing her, and an episode that dealt with the sentience and free will of Sentimonsters. Heaven knows we didn't need Party Crashers, so go ahead and replace that. There could have been time for Ladybug and Cat Noir to discuss if seeing Hogmock gave any clues to his identity. Marinette and Adrian's relationship could have had time to grow into a healthier friendship. Even Alia could have had time to realize she's been blindly believing Lila over Marinette, and how stupid that is now that she knows Lila is willing to get Marinette expelled. But instead, they make the baffling decision to shove it all into one episode. And decisions like that show that the writers just don't care how any of the show feels. All that matters is making things happen, because as long as things keep happening, then the show has to have some sort of meaning. Miraculous Ladybug is a mess because it has no reason not to be. Children don't care about plot structure, or story arcs, or relationship drama, or even when a new episode comes out. They just want to watch their favorite heroes fight people with cool powers. They want to see problems get solved and good win over evil. And anyone over 10 who watches this just lets its flaws go because it's a kid's show and the premise is fun and addicting and they keep doing new things that conceptually are interesting, so who cares about the execution? Well, I do. I care. I want this show to be better. I want the people in charge to bother with going back and double checking the accuracy of their episode. I want the villains to not look like Beatty's first DeviantArt OC. I want the writers to settle on an idea and really show its full potential, expanding past the obvious interactions and showing character growth and actual thoughts. I want the director to not be a dick to children. I want Party Crashers to never have existed, and I want the goddamn series to take its time and allow 15-year-old kids to feel human emotions. But that's just the opinion of a 24-year-old lady who watches children's television as a hobby and who rants on the internet. But I put it on the internet, so it must be true. I'm Gail, and this is not the last you'll hear from me about this topic. Bye-bye! Hi there, it's the end of the video, my friend. Hit the bell if it was okay, I'm sure I'll make good content someday. I'll play some games or do some drawing, Pokemon and fights with darling, video essays and reviews. I couldn't do it without you, so thanks, like and subscribe.